Am I the asshole for yelling at a girl with Down syndrome and her mother for coughing? I have a 14-year-old cousin with Down syndrome. She is overall a very nice girl, but she has one major issue that can't seem to be resolved. She coughs with her mouth wide open and coughs directly into people's faces. I see her pretty often as we are a close family, and this becomes an issue just about every time. I've tried staying silent, but it's a serious problem. I've addressed this with my aunt, and she just tells me to get over it because she doesn't know any better. However, I've noticed that she is not even making the effort to try and correct her. She just sits around and lets her do it. Does not even say something as simple as, "Let's remember to cover our mouth." I've told her she needs to get it under control, but she refuses to acknowledge it, continuing to play the "she can't help it" card. The final straw for me was 2 days ago when we were visiting my other aunt who has a newborn. They gave my cousin the chance to hold the baby while sitting on the couch. She then coughed 2 huge coughs directly into the baby's face. I was terrified. I yelled, "Stop! You'll make the baby sick." My aunt told me to stop being so dramatic and let it go. My cousin then started crying. I responded with, "I'll let it go when you teach your daughter to cover her mouth when she coughs. It's not that hard." I understand that raising a child with Down syndrome is not easy. It's very difficult, I know. I just feel that this is something every child should be taught. My aunt flipped out and my cousin started crying hysterically. My aunt told me I should be ashamed of myself, and they stormed out. Almost my entire family is calling me an AH, saying I was being so rude and ignorant. My grandma even said it was fine if she coughs in the baby's face because babies can't catch anything, which I know is not true. I do feel bad for the way I worded it, but this is an ongoing issue that my aunt refuses to help. Am I the asshole? Relevant comments. A clarification. I did not say, "I understand it's hard raising a child with Down syndrome" in front of her. That was strictly for this post to clarify that I'm not saying it's easy. Notice how that part is not in quotes. You didn't need to yell, ESH. She's a product of bad raising and you could have corrected her differently. Believe me, I've tried several times with the gentle reminders and I've even tried correcting her myself. Her mom always tells me to stop every single time. Update. 10 days later. So I have a relatively scary update, and I also want to clarify some things. In the comment section of that version of the post, I said how my aunt with the baby was very silent the entire encounter. While that was the case, she was also very much pressured into letting my cousin hold her baby. My grandma and other aunts, cousin's mom, we'll refer to her as that from now on, kept saying over and over to let her hold him. She was overall reluctant and quiet, but they kept pushing. My cousin's mom even made a comment about her being ableist for not letting her hold him. She was submissive and caved in. I was also a good 10 feet away when I yelled. I want to make it clear, I yelled out of fear for the baby. Something I did not mention in that post because it felt like too much to add, and wasn't necessarily relevant to the story, was that my cousin has a hitting-punching problem. She is very sweet, but when she gets upset, she will start hitting or even punching people. Her mom doesn't stop it because she insists she doesn't know any better, and insists hitting will help her calm down. Well, yesterday, my aunt with the baby called me sobbing, telling me that my cousin and aunt came over to see the baby and were pushed into letting her hold him once again. My cousin got into a fit and started slapping the baby in the face. Hard. My aunt rushed over and took the baby away. She reprimanded both cousin and her mom. My cousin started crying and cousin's mom asked how to dare she yell at them and kept playing the "she doesn't know any better" card. I believe she should be teaching her that it's not okay to hit a baby. My aunt kicked them out, and she told me she took the baby to either urgent care ER. Don't remember which, no idea how that played out, and I won't pre. Don't forget to like and subscribe for more stories like this. My cousin's mom sent my aunt a message going on about how ableist she was, and she knew the risk of hitting by letting her hold him. Except you pressured her into it? That's all I have so far, and I'm in utter disbelief. And as for my grandma saying, babies can't catch anything, she says that she had taught her whole childhood that babies are immune to everything. No idea what that's about. This is all for now. Relevant comments. Her Down syndrome is not an excuse to behave in that way. I get that it's nowhere near easy to teach, and it can get very exhausting, but some things just cross the line. Thank you so much. I had people in the Ari Mythiasoul subreddit saying, there is no scenario where someone yelling at a child with Down syndrome would not be the AH. OP clarifies about themselves. Exactly. Some were even saying, I clearly don't know what it's like being disabled or having to take care of someone disabled. But here's the kicker. I'm disabled. I'm also high-functioning autistic. Final update. 5 days later. My aunt, the one with the baby, called me last night. After she took her baby boy to the ER after my cousin slapped him, apparently my grandma angrily yelled at her on the phone. She threatened her to say she better not report my cousin for slapping him, or there will be dire consequences. My grandma also continued to pull the "she doesn't know any better" card and insisted my aunt should just get used to the fact that my cousin hits people, and it's going to happen. My aunt was furious but kept silent. I don't know what she ended up telling the ER happened, but he sustained no serious injuries. After they got back home, my cousin's mom called her saying she never should have taken him to the ER in the first place, because it wasn't that big of a deal and that she was being dramatic. My aunt finally told me at the end of the phone call that she had decided to go to NC with them and apologized to me, as that would mean leaving me behind. I told her it would not, because I've decided if these people think that my cousin should get away with assaulting babies because she has Down syndrome and refuse to help her or try to correct her behavior, then they're not worth being around. We're both going to NC now. Thank you guys for all of your comments and advice. I have a long journey ahead of me, but I'm glad that my aunt, nephew, and I all have each other now. Relevant comments. How's the baby? Yep, he's fine. My aunt ran over as soon as my cousin lifted her hand, so it could have been way worse. Aunt needs to report this. I spoke to my aunt about reporting it at the advice of these comments, but she's really worried about it coming back to bite her. She's worried that nothing will come of it, as it'll be very difficult to prove. It was my cousin who hit the baby, and she's also worried the authorities might agree with her sister and grandma that my cousin doesn't know any better. I'm not sure what she told them in the ER, and I'm really not one to pry. I'll definitely try to keep convincing her to report. Comment. The ablest people in this story are the ones who don't believe a disabled person can have a moral or social compass. Of course, they can, just like every able-bodied person. But like everyone else, they need to be raised, knowing what's acceptable and not acceptable. Ada being pissed at what my wife said to our niece. My sister and brother-in-law were abusive parents to my niece, Charlotte. I always tried to protect her, but my wife and I were only able to get custody 3 years ago. We adopted her, and she's a good kid at heart, but she still struggles a lot. She's still in therapy and has come so far, but finds it difficult to accept unconditional love and that kids don't have to be perfect. While she's usually fine with my wife and I, she still sometimes tends to see our daughter, Chloe, as ungrateful and spoiled. I've worked really hard on this, and it's a lot better, but sometimes it comes up in their teenage squabbles. It's not perfect, but the girls generally get along. Last Friday, they had an issue. I was at work, so this is based on what I was told after. Chloe was refusing to do any of her chores and arguing about it with my wife. Charlotte jumped in and basically called Chloe lazy and said that she should be a better daughter like her. Apparently, my wife got pissed off and told her off. She reminded her that she was lucky we were taking care of her and to stay out of it. From there, it got bad. My wife says that Charlotte was extremely rude about Chloe, but she also admits she told Charlotte that we didn't have to take care of her, and that basically, unlike Chloe, we can send her back to her parents if she keeps it up. Ignoring the fact we legally cannot. That's just completely fucked up. They ended their fight with Charlotte just going to my parents for that night, and she's been really upset and withdrawn since. When I got home, my wife filled me in, and I was honestly pretty furious. The first thing that came to mind was, "What the fuck is wrong with you?" Which admittedly wasn't a productive response, but I was honestly just floored. The issue is that Charlotte doesn't get that a kid deserves unconditional love, even if they're not perfect, so you fucking tell her that you'll kick her out if she doesn't behave. All the progress I worked with her for is going to be shut back again. I was mad and we fought about it. I get she can be difficult, but that was inappropriate. However, she still refused to apologize or anything. I've tried to talk to her and explain that we love her, and that it wasn't meant the way it was said. But my wife is just accusing me of babying and favoring Charlotte. Apparently, I'm being unreasonable thinking what she did was disgusting. That I should care more about Chloe. As if this is a competition. I am still honestly pretty pissed at her. While she just claims I'm unreasonable and being a shit dad to Chloe. Update. First, I want to thank everyone for their responses. It was helpful, some I disagreed with. While things aren't perfect, they're both good kids and my wife is making amends for what she did. Since then, my wife and I have been in therapy. She apologized and tried fix it with Charlotte, but she lost a lot of trust with what she said. Even now, it's not back to what it was. The therapy is helping, and she realized just how wrong it was. Charlotte has mostly gone back to normal around me, though a bit clingier. I've made it clear I'll always love and be there for her. And I've been making it clear it's unconditional, and she doesn't have to be perfect or deserve it. She's obviously still in therapy and getting help. The girls have had some stupid fights since, but nothing like last time. Charlotte initially distanced herself, but Chloe got back to normal quicker than my wife and me. She was really there for Charlotte. When she wants to be, she can be really thoughtful. Chloe is doing fine. I made sure to talk to her and she doesn't have an issue with Charlotte. As usual, she basically said, Charlotte can be annoying, but she loves her, a normal sister. It's not perfect, but improving. I think my wife's actions were a mistake, but they were from the situation rather than about Charlotte herself. All the little issues built up and she exploded. She didn't realize how much it grew to bother her. She's made it clear she knows Charlotte is our daughter now and that it was a horrible mistake. We are working to fix it. If she really can't handle it, I will have to leave for Charlotte's sake, but I think our progress is promising so far. Now I want to clarify some things. Charlotte did have issues with women. However, this wasn't her being rude per se. The issue was that she was terrified. She would basically be silent and overly obedient, but clearly scared and unwilling to open up. With me, she let her guard down quicker to let me love and help her. For my wife, it took months for more than one-word answers and almost 2 years to stop the fear. Backtalking and interjections were a problem, but because she was comfortable with my wife, not the opposite. I was heavily involved in raising the girls. I didn't leave it to my wife. I just happened to be working late that day. Other days it was my wife working, and me with the girls. Further, there are consequences for misbehaving. We just had a bigger issue that night. Overall, thank you for the advice. I hope things keep getting better, even if it's slow. Comment. Oh man, that poor kid. Charlotte is going to remember what the wife said for the rest of her life. I don't understand how she didn't think it was an unspeakably cruel thing to say. We have come to the end of our story. Don't forget to like and subscribe for more stories like this. Tell us what you think about this story in the comments.